Well, that one hurt, didn't it? I'm trying to figure out how to start my review here, and right now it's just a jumbled mess of emotions and mental breakdowns. That may have been one of the best episodes of Star Wars television ever created, especially in live action. And I know I'm not alone in that opinion either, because I was on Twitter for about a half an hour after finishing the episode, watching everyone else have the same reaction I did. We're all a mess right now. I can't think of any Star Wars story since the Siege of Mandalore that had me on the edge of my seat like that throughout the entire episode, shaking from literal fear of the onslaught I was witnessing, tearing up as our beloved characters were tossed to the side one by one. I expected all the Jedi without speaking lines in the fourth episode to be killed off. That was to be expected, to show how powerful the Stranger is. But they did not need to take it that far. I had mentioned in my last review how this episode had the potential to turn the series from good to great in my eyes, and this episode did exactly that. The mystery, the theories, everything came to a climax in this episode, and if we're being honest, it's hard to say exactly how we'll fill out the last 3 episodes in the season. One's got to be a flashback showing what really happened, and then I guess we have 2 episodes to bring the present day story to a wrap, at least for the first season. But we'll see where it goes from here. Okay, I've stalled enough. Diving into the episode, we started off with Osha, and I found it funny how the first thing she was concerned about was Pip. Funny. Oh, innocent me. Everything is way too calm right now, and when Osha stumbles upon the first of many slain Jedi lying on the ground, it seems as though the entire battle took place while she was knocked out, and now we're just seeing the aftermath. I thought this would have been an interesting approach, since the entire series so far has basically been from Osha's point of view, but I'm glad they didn't go this direction. We're able to hear some lightsabers off in the distance, fighting behind the trees, and now we see Ethiopian go down. Rest in peace to the Plo Koon imitator. And then the first of many big moments for me, 2 of the Jedi are able to land blows on the Stranger's helmet and bracer, which deflects the lightsaber and then temporarily makes them unable to turn on. I literally had to pause the episode because I was freaking out so much that they made Cortosis canon here. But after a little research, I realized it was mentioned in a Thrawn book already, but still big seeing it in the series. The action during the entire episode was stunning, and I mean, a Jedi shish kebab, that was pretty sick to watch. Osha tries to stun the Stranger, which does absolutely nothing to him, but it does get his attention, as he now pursues her. I did find it interesting that in the last episode, Osha was right in front of him. He could have easily killed her right then and there, but for some reason he didn't. And that may connect to the end of the episode, so you'll have to wait to hear what I have to say about that. It was funny though how the Stranger just left Yord lying injured on the ground there as he went after Osha. He throws his lightsaber after her, and then Sol shows up to save her, finally, and then sends her away with Yord to the ship for safety. And even though I'd say we still haven't seen much of him, this may be one of the best Star Wars villains we've seen in a while. That head tilt was creepy as hell, and with the sleeveless and scarred arms, I gotta give respect to Chimere's actor. Something that I think this episode did a good job was throwing in small details that made me really question who this Stranger was. Obviously, the popular theory was Chimere, which turned out to be correct, and the larger arms supported that earlier in the episode. But when Sol and the Stranger have their lines back and forth during combat, it sounded though as if this was someone from Sol's past, like Mother Coral or maybe even a former student, because he had that line of, "You tell me," later on, when Sol questions why he would hide his identity from May. There's also another big moment when Sol calls the red lightsaber a Jedi weapon, which, like I said in a video from way before this series even premiered, a red blade does not necessarily mean Sith. That isn't a link the Jedi instantly make. Sol's able to hold his own in the duel, but eventually the Stranger disappears on him. Although it looked like May was grabbing Kelnaka's lightsaber to go help the Jedi defeat her master, looking back, I think it's also possible that she just wanted a weapon and was planning on fleeing anyways, because she sure did run a lot in this episode. She's visibly afraid of her master and what he can do to her. But Jackie stops her by doing her best impression of Captain America's laying out for the kick. I think it was big that she never drew her lightsaber here, going back to what May said during her fight with Endara about intent to kill and all that. But despite that, Jackie still puts up an impressive fight, although it wasn't as interesting to watch as the rest of the action in the episode. I did have to kind of roll my eyes at Yord though when they hear Jackie scream out and he's like, "She's a Jedi, she can handle herself," as if there weren't 4 slaughtered Jedi back there that weren't able to handle themselves. But it was interesting hearing him talk about how confusing this warrior was, with no pattern of movements, no rules of combat. Osha mentioning her mother's ability to get inside a Jedi's head was another detail that made me think possibly this was Mother Coral, but even though it wasn't, I feel like there's still more to the witches than we know, unless that line was simply just to throw us off a little longer. Jackie's able to ultimately subdue May, and then the Stranger shows up, although it seemed more like he wanted May and she just happened to be there too. Jackie's able to put up a solid fight with the Stranger, and her fighting with 2 blades was so fascinating to watch. I got hints of Ahsoka in there, but just the fact that this Padawan can go toe-to-toe with a Sith says a lot about her. But again, after she becomes distracted losing 1 blade, the Stranger disappears again to go after May. The Stranger didn't care about killing the Jedi here, he wanted May. And oh my gosh, that jump scare as May is running, the mask flashing on the screen as he's in her head. I jumped from where I was sitting. But before he's able to finish May off, Sol and Jackie tag team fight him, master and apprentice together, and I mean, the action in this episode was unmatched. Better than anything we've seen all series. And as soon as she gets the chance, May runs again. She's a coward, and it reminded me of Yoda's line, "Cowards are those who follow the dark side." She was not going to face the consequences, help the Jedi. She was booking it every chance she got. But Sol was putting up an incredible fight. He doesn't need a lightsaber to mess somebody up. He rose the ranks of my favorite characters from the series, with just how he was able to use martial arts and his fists in action. It was so satisfying to watch him land blows on the stranger like that. Jackie's able to break the mask, and then the stranger's lightsaber breaks into two, which was sick. And then I became broken just like that mask, watching 3 holes appear in Jackie's back. I really thought she was going to make it out alive. The unnamed Jedi were whatever, but now Chimere, as it was revealed, has officially taken things too far. And it seems as though he's won here. Sol throws his lightsaber down, and we finally get to take a little breather as the heartbeat returns to normal. Chimere tells Sol that he's a Sith, and because of the way canon works, it would seem as though both Sol and Osha are done for in the series. Or at least, they won't be returning to the Jedi. I could see Sol dying in the finale and Osha going out into the galaxy, making the Jedi Order as a whole still unaware of the Sith's return. I did kinda like though how Chimere turns the Jedi rules against them, saying that since the Order says he as a Sith can't exist, anyone that sees him has to die. It's dark and twisted, but to a degree makes sense and exposes the Jedi's rule. I hate Chimere so much for what he's done, but he is such a well-written villain too. Yord quickly comes to the rescue, deactivating Chimere's lightsaber with his own helmet, but oh wait, he gets his neck snapped. Those first 4 episodes really just pulled us all in and stabbed us in the back here. There's little more fighting after this, and I was so rooting for Sol to beat him up so badly, give him everything he deserves. But Osha stops him from fully embracing his rage and killing Chimere, showing that she still has a bit of the Jedi in her. Osha's able to use Pip to attract the bugs to Chimere, who carry him away, and with all that over, Osha is now very concerned about Sol, as Chimere hinted at some dark things he's done in the past. I really thought we were going to get some answers in this episode, whether from Chimere spilling the truth, Sol finally telling Osha about it all, or even May after she stuns Sol and the 2 sisters have a moment together. But nothing so far. I do have to applaud Amandla Stenberg for this scene though, because not only did she portray 2 very complex and different characters in the same scene, they even end up fighting each other afterward, which was probably done with some special effects, but still impressive. This entire scene as a whole was a little weird for me, because I really didn't know who to trust, who knew the full story or the right story, what May wanted here. It seems as though she just wants to be with her sister, but as soon as she realizes that isn't possible, she knocks her out, cuts her own hair, and takes her sister's identity. Hopefully Sol will be able to realize he's got May aboard instead of Osha, but honestly, it looks like Basil might end up being the hero, as he's still tracking May. He could expose her in the ship. But Chimere comes back now, having defeated the bugs, and he finds Osha lying injured in the forest still. It looks like he did a bit of force healing on her, and then that's where it ends, basically. The Kylo Ren theme did play at the very end, which is extremely interesting to think about, but that may or may not be talked about more in a theory video of mine later this week, we'll see. What did you think of this episode of The Acolyte? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like the video and subscribe for coverage of the series as a new episode premieres every week, and remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you all for watching, and remember, the Force will be with you. Always.